on?
So, yeah, I can hear you. Everyone can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I have a presentation. You think you can load that presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Can you just go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I just want to start with some opening remarks. The opening remarks is that actually, if you look at Indian business schools in a totality, in aggregate, you'll find that Indian business schools have done quite well. In some sense, we've already built global world-class schools. We have three in the top 50 of global ranking of MBA programs of FT. We have three in the top 50 of global rankings of Master in Management programs in FT. You take our own institution, IIM Bangalore, we are 27th in the FT global ranking of MBA. We are 36 in the global ranking of Master in Management. So unlike many other parts of higher education in India, we are already among the top ranking institutions. This is something I would like to underline. We are already part of the top ranking institutions. Similarly, if you look at accreditation, we have several schools accredited by ACSB, by EQUIS, by AMBA. We have 3 triple accredited schools in India. And we have an accomplished alumni pool. We have people, ranging from global CEOs like Indira Nooyi to world thought leaders like C.K. Prahalad, and of course, very, very acclaimed economists and Reserve Bank chiefs, central bank chiefs like Raghuram Rajan. So I would like to start by saying that Indian business schools have already done well, but perhaps we are still at that last step where we catapult into the maybe global reckoning. I think that's what is the challenge. Can you put up the next slide, please? Yeah, so if you take IIMB as well, I think I mentioned this earlier, we are already the top ranked institute in India as per EdUniversal and QS World. We are number 2 according to NIRF. We are the only Indian B school in GNAM, which is a unique set of global business schools. We have a wonderful MOOCs platform, which has been rated the 3rd best in the world among global business schools. We are also the coordinator for management education on India's digital learning platform, SWAYAM. So all I'm trying to say is that in a way, we have already shown that we are a world-class business school. The question is, how do you get the world outside to recognize you as such? Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, if you come to IIMB's vision, our vision is to be a global, renowned academic institution, fostering excellence in management, innovation, and entrepreneurship for business, government, and society. So there are, 3 things: excellence in management, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and 3 key stakeholders we are talking about: business, government, and society. So this is quite a challenging vision. And can we move to the next slide on the mission? Yeah, so this vision translates into 3 points. We want to nurture innovative global business leaders, entrepreneurs, policy makers, social change agents through holistic and transformative education. We want to provide thought leadership that is contextually embedded and socially relevant and makes positive impact. And we want to pursue excellence in education and thought leadership simultaneously without making any trade-offs. So this is what we are trying to do. Can you go to the next slide? So how are we doing this? We are essentially trying to focus on enhancing impact. Essentially, we are trying to get our faculty to pool their research skills together to take on really naughty problems and trying to solve them, particularly those which will have impact at the level of the country or entire industries. We are looking at launching new academic programs which will create the next generation of leaders. And we hope to use our digital experience and the digital platform we have created to provide engaged digital learning, both to people who are looking for continuous learning or executive education, as well as for people in undermanaged sectors. So this is what we are doing. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, what is the challenge? So I thought rather than tell you details of what we are doing, I would like to pose the challenge to all of you, particularly any of my colleagues from other institutions who are listening, or any of the students who happen to be logged in. It would be great to hear from you some ideas on how can we address the challenges we face at this point of time, when in a way we have already arrived, we're already there on the global rankings. How do we make that last step to be renowned like a Harvard or a Stanford or any of those Wharton or any of those other top schools? Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so there are three sets of challenges I want to talk about, which I think are core to this question of how do you occupy that mind space of the global business leaders so that you're considered among the top few business schools in the world. One is the positioning challenge. Historically, we looked at these two, relevance and practice orientation, and research and conceptual rigor, as kind of orthogonal to each other. It was sort of assumed that you couldn't do both at the same time. So if I look at it globally, maybe a school like Harvard Business School was stronger on the relevance and practice orientation, as reflected in all those cases that we teach and all the practice oriented articles, Harvard Business Review, etc. And then we had schools which were more focused on research and conceptual rigor. Maybe here we are thinking of a Chicago Booth School, or we are thinking of a school like Wharton, which is very, very researchy in terms of the number of papers they are publishing in top journals. Now, one of the big challenges for schools today is where do you try to position yourself on this chart if you want to catch the attention of world leaders? Obviously, world leaders in the business world are looking more for that relevance or practice orientation along the y-axis, whereas the academic leaders, your peers, are looking for your contribution on the x-axis, on the research and conceptual rigor. So in a way, if you want to make it to the top today, maybe you want to do both, but can you do both? Can you really have faculty who can do both of these simultaneously? How do you reach those top business leaders? What are the kind of journals or what are the kind of outlets which will help you reach them? I think this is a huge question, which is a challenging question at this point of time. Next slide, please. The next one is the research and publication challenge. So if you look at the Financial Times ranking and you look at what factors have the highest weights, a lot of the factors which have high weights are related to salary increase and salary after MBA. We do quite well on the salary increase parameter. That's why many Indian schools are well ranked in the FT rankings. But Indian schools don't do so well on the research rank. If you look at the research ranks, typically we are at anywhere around 99, 100. I think ISB, Indian School of Business, is the best Indian school among the research rankings, but even ISB is in the 80s. So the huge challenge, if you look at the numbers of publications, we are far away from the Whartons and the other top schools. And there is really a big question mark about whether we could actually ever catch up with them. The resources required, the faculty required to get to that level of research and publication output may be a bit beyond our reach. So there's a huge research and publication challenge. Yes, we can certainly do enough research to get ranked at a decent level at the FT rankings, but can we do what it takes to get into the top school ranks? That's the big question. Can we go to the next slide, please? And then there is the temporal challenge. This is where I would like to spend a few minutes. I think one challenge is about this whole concept of thought leadership. You saw it in our mission statement. So what we are really trying to say here is, how do we capture the attention of world business leaders? For example, will we ever have a Michael Porter from India, or will we ever have a Phil Kotler from India? Of course, we had Indians who made it, but they made it from the US, people like C.K. Prahlad, Sumantra Ghoshal. But will we have an Indian thought leader from India? And this may be key to our becoming on the top rung of global business schools. There are challenges in thought leadership today. One challenge is that the internet has democratized ideas. Earlier, if you wanted to have an article which reached the top managers in the world, you had certain gatekeepers who provided you access to those thought leaders. For example, Harvard Business Review, or maybe certain specialized outlets. But today, people are reading articles on LinkedIn, they're reading articles on blogs, they're reading articles on a whole lot of decentralized, highly democratized outlets. How do you make impact, or how do you capture people's eyeballs in this kind of a environment of so much buzz? Associated with this is, maybe if you want to have thought leaders from India, it will happen when India is seen as a global incubator for new business models. That means certain models emerging from India, which are well documented or perhaps even contributed to from Indian business academics, those models become successful models globally. Do we have enough of that? I mean, until that happens, I think thought leadership is going to be difficult to achieve. Second issue is credibility of the geography. And this is partly related to the last point. India will be seen as an incubator for new business models when India as an economy becomes a powerhouse of the global economy. Till such time as the Indian economy is more of a potential powerhouse or an emerging leader rather than a proven leader, it's going to be difficult to say that our geography essentially accounts for the best ideas. A similar challenge exists with respect to global employment. People go to a Harvard Business School or a Wharton because they know that if they get an MBA there, they'll have access to the best, companies in the world. Can that same be said for, going to an Indian institution? And that will happen only when Indian jobs become the sort of key jobs in the world, or when people across the world are really aspiring to Indian jobs, which again goes back to the credibility of our geography. And last but not the least, the key question is, what does differentiation mean today? As business school leaders, we often talk about differentiating ourselves, but how do you really achieve true differentiation? Under what conditions would the top international students want to come and study here, like they would go to study in an HBS, a Wharton, an LBS, or any of those top schools, in INSEAD, whatever you're talking about? We still haven't found that idea, that source of differentiation which will attract those top students. One challenge is, of course, with employment in India. Another problem is with the Indian potential not getting fully realized. So essentially what I'm trying to present before you is, I don't have a blueprint for how we catapult ourselves into the, say, top 10 rankings. But unless we address these temporal challenges, the research and publication challenge, and the positioning challenge, I don't think we'll make it to the top business schools in the world. So this is where we have to exercise our creative energy to succeed in the global business school environment. Thank you, and I'd like to close here. Thanks.